recording. Okay, I started. So yesterday, I believe most of you have also received this email talking about passing away of Piyush Gupta. It is pretty sad news. I personally met with him only once, but it's actually from the email, it seems that it's because of COVID. So this is still impacting all of us. I hope everybody over here, to stay safe and stay healthy at home. And I hope him rest in peace over there. Today we got quite a bit of agenda to go through. Firstly, we will do some updates around CAP. I think there are two major CAPs and made significant progress. One is the container notifier, and the other is volume populator. The cozy one, I think Xin has more insights. There are some updates on data protection white paper. And Tom is actually off today, so his part will not be covered today. And lastly, we had a cloud native CNCF conference I think 2 weeks back, something like that, 3 weeks back, and there are some questions from there. Today, I think Xin invited the person to talk about mount snapshots as read-only volumes. Xin, you want to give a short description or introduction?
Oh yeah, sorry, this is not from KubeCon. The one from KubeCon we talked last time because you couldn't attend last time. It was in the last meeting. This was just today in our Slack channel. There was a question. I think it's Robert, right? Robert Wasak, right?
Oh yes.
Okay, yeah. So he asked a question this morning on the Slack channel about the option of mounting snapshot as a read-only volume. So we can talk about that at the end. Thanks for joining the meeting.
Got it. Okay, let's get started, and starting from the CAP update. Container notifier, we are fairly close to merge it. We just need one more LGTM and approval from SIG nodes chair. Either it's Don or Derek. I'm following up with Don. And the Xin has made another round of updates to meet the alpha requirements for release. And another person from the release team, a production readiness team, is going to need to sign off and approve it. I think that person is John. Xin, is my understanding correct?
Yeah, we listed his name there. I think we can ping him after we got approval from Signode.
Right.
Since the alpha, I think it should be straightforward.
You guys are talking about the CAP, not the implementation, right?
Just the CAP. Yeah, we already marked this one. This is only 1.23. This is not in this release.
Yeah.
I'm curious how far along the implementation is.
Which one? Content notifier?
Yeah, is there like a prototype
no, we have
or
not.
a proof of concept?
So you know that we had the previous proposal execution hook, right? That one we actually have implementation. Then we were asked to go this completely different route. So this time we're going to get full approval before we start coding.
Okay.
But some of the code that we had last time can still be used. It's just right now, the whole structure is different, right? So we need to go to Signode to apply for a repo. It's like a repo. It's not kubelet in the alpha release. It's not going to be in kubelet. So we're going to have an external controller. It's going to be a separate repo, but it's going to be managed by Signode. So we're going to add the logic there. So I think whatever code we had previously, I think we can still use them. Some of them.
The best case scenario is CAP is approved, and then it goes alpha in 123.
Yeah.
Out of tree.
In tree.
Yes. So the API will be in tree. API is in tree. And then the part that is running the command, that part is going to be a external controller for now. And then after the first alpha, I'm not sure it's going to be another. Do you know it's going to be another alpha or it's going to be beta when we move this to kubelet? It's going to be beta, right? We'll hope to, the second phase is beta.
That
Move
phase, right? The first phase is to write a community maintained repo auto tree controller to respond to the in-tree APIs. And once this is kind of verified, the POC works fine. There's no lot of concerns from kubelet in terms of performance, etc. Then this logic will be moved into kubelet. And
Okay.
I actually foresee this to happen in one alpha because the API itself has to be staged. The API contains a pod notification resource, which is in core. It also has a notification which wraps around the pod notification, and this is in the second stage. So to answer your question, Ben, yeah, this is still gonna be a long pull. We can see because this requires significant change in both the core and the kubelet.
Okay, and I haven't checked on the with the cap the specification for the APIs recently, but I'm just curious. Like, the idea is that this will underlie some mechanism of like performing or providing a standard way for applications to quiesce themselves that can be invoked from the outside by like a backup application, right? That's still the high level goal.
Right. The higher level goal is in an application deployment or stateful set, right? You can specify what type of container notifiers can happen on a particular container. During the application level snapshot or backup process, an orchestrator or controller can trigger those container notifiers by creating a pod notification resource. The
Okay.
orchestration is still happening, is still controlled by upper level controllers, but the scope is limited to whoever defines the deployment and stateful set. They understand the application, they define those, and they open that interface to backup vendors or application snapshotters or whatever.
Right. And that's how we care about this particular mechanism, but the mechanism has other uses too.
Signals as well, yes. Like
Okay.
a signal is another use case, and that's in stage 2 as well. We are not going to focus on that in alpha stage. And another use case is signal do have this requirement when taint a node, they want to notify all the pods that run up and running on that particular node so that they can exit gracefully instead of they go ahead and shut them down.
Okay, that's a cool idea.
Yep. If anyone is interested, please take a look at the CAP. It's in merge ready state. Xin and I will follow up on this, and hopefully we'll get this done by this week. All right. Big applause to Brian as well. I think he canceled all the data popular API discussion meetings, which means the CAP is officially there. I will leave it to Ben to give updates, please.
Oh, I mean, yeah, there's not much of an announcement here. I gave the update, I think, 2 weeks ago on what was actually agreed to when we merged the CAP. So I won't go over that again, but yeah, the weekly meetings we've been holding were really about design, and now that the design is settled, they just kind of turned into status meetings, and we don't need a whole hour just to talk about status and have no one show up. So I'm going to do my status updates in the Kubernetes CSI meetings, and if we do have any more design issues come up related to data or volume populators, we can do like a one-off meeting, but we didn't need the weeklies anymore.
Got it. And I think you already had a POC. It's just a matter of translating that POC into a real code, right?
Well, so yeah, the POC for how populators should work has remained unchanged this whole time. Everyone is pretty happy with that. All of the disagreement was really about the Kubernetes API and how you should express when you create your PVC that you want to have the volume created from something. The issue was that we had this data source field, and the plan had been to, you can use the data source today to clone a volume or clone a snapshot. And the idea was to gracefully extend that to clone anything. It turns out that because of various design choices or mistakes, depending on how you look at it, when that API moved from alpha to beta to GA, it was not possible to open it up to arbitrary CRs without breaking backwards compatibility in some ways. So that was where the API reviewers had the most qualms with the design. And so we went around and around and around and finally reached a design that appears to make everyone happy, but it involves replacing the data source field on PVCs with a new field called data source ref, which will have to go through alpha, beta, GA, and then we'll have to deprecate the existing field and do a whole thing to sort of gradually move people to the new way of specifying data sources. But the new mechanism will continue to support PVCs and snapshots. It will be 100% backwards compatible with the current implementation, and it will allow all of the other things that we want to allow. So it's that API work that I'm primarily focused on in this release, is getting the Kubernetes API updated with this new field and all the backwards compatibility stuff. Everything else is sort of in the same state it was in last release, and I just need to keep pushing forward to do releases and add more tests and the other,
That's
just
that's nice.
yeah.
I'm afraid you probably need to introduce another web validation webhook as well.
All of the
This is
PVC stuff is going to be
in
in
tree. I think
tree.
we don't, yeah, you don't need that.
We had talked about putting a validating webhook on the volume populator CRD and decided against it for now. That's still a decision we could change, but there was very little value in doing it relative to the cost of having a whole extra controller. So I don't know if we'll end up doing that. But at this time, the plan is not to have any webhooks on volume populator.
Validation is gonna happen in tree, right? Because I would
the validation
assume
of the PVC objects, yes, that's all in tree.
Then you will have like a conversion, like a mutation webhook.
Yeah,
right?
but to be clear, like if I define like a foo CRD and then I instantiate a PVC with a data source ref that points to an instance of a foo PVC, the in-tree validation is going to say, sure, that looks fine. It's not going to reject it. It's just going to accept anything that you put in the data source field, as long as it's not a core object. Core objects are special, and we'll reject those. But anything that's not a core object, the PVC will be created, and then it just won't bind unless there is a populator that understands that particular object and knows how to, and everything else lines up so that it can be populated, and then the volume can bind. So all the other controllers are about providing user feedback, helping them understand why their PVC hasn't bound yet. But it'll pass API validation, and you'll just get these events that says, no populator is registered for type foo. And you'll say, oh, okay, I guess that's why my PVC is going nowhere.
I see.
There's no populator.
Nice work. We all know how challenging it is whenever you want to make a field change in core APIs, and hopefully to hear back from you soon.
Yes.
The implementation. Okay. This is gonna be really fun.
And the API guys have been incredibly helpful the whole way through.
Oh yeah, they are very helpful. No, it's an interesting journey, and normally if you want to do some change in the core API, that's what I would expect. Okay, nothing else, then we move on to COD Zcap. Xin, you want to give an update on that?
So I can think Cozy Cap. I think Sid is still working on updating the cap because there are some concerns from the API reviewers. So once that's ready, then we can get another round of review from the API reviewers. And then in addition to that, I think the team has been pretty busy also looking at the downward APIs. This is like how the driver how that part of API is shaping up. So yeah, so that's
the downward API for Cozy is really about how the workload will consume buckets. That's what they're working on there. I'm kind of curious, just from the perspective of this group, what the
how we use this.
Yeah.
So,
what is the thinking about once we have Cozy, what are we going to do with it from a data protection standpoint?
So this is so I think we are thinking this is a part of the backup repository. So this is also one of the missing building blocks. But I think something is still missing, right? So this is so this will have our APIs to provision the bucket. But then I think seems like we still need to have another API object
for
somehow.
Yeah, those all this, right, including volume backup module, data populator, container notifiers, and the Cozy, those are just pieces or backup vendors can utilize to achieve data protection in a Kubernetes context. So how they're gonna use those APIs, it's really upper level controllers' decision, right? It's just a matter of, okay, I have this API over here. I can provision a bucket. I can do import a bucket or something like that.
Yeah, so these APIs are nice and generalized, flexible APIs, and that's the right way to do it. I guess what my musings were, are we contemplating developing some sort of standard way of doing things that consumes all of this stuff? Is that something we consider in scope for this working group? Or is it just we're going to create a bunch of components and let people put them together and not offer much more guidance?
That's a great question. I think the whole purpose of white paper is exactly to achieve that. We are not necessarily called that guidance. It's just our own experiences and the understanding. Does that make sense to you, Ben? Because apparently different backup vendors have their own implementations, right? They have their own ways of doing orchestration. Putting a generic controller like that, I'm a little concerned that we don't have the necessary knowledge to put in very generic controllers over all these all these building blocks. But instead, we can share our understanding on currently widely deployed stateful workloads in Kubernetes clusters, and how do we look at things, right? How do we look at, so for example, how do we do a backup of a MySQL database, etc. And then it's up to the specific backup vendors to use those APIs to achieve their goals.
Yeah, and that's totally worth doing. I guess I was wondering if we have an even loftier goal in the long run of developing some sort of API which is in fact standardized, right? Because the problem with what you propose is, yeah, we have all these tools out there and backup vendors can use them to deliver really good backup implementations, but those backup implementations themselves are proprietary and non-portable. And we'll never get to the place where there is like the Kubernetes backup API that you can just rely on no matter which cluster you're running against, right? Like that's a much harder goal to get there. I'm not saying like that's where we should be focused now, but I thought that that's the goal that some people had way back at the beginning.
You're talking about the application backup, that API? There's the application backup, application snapshot APIs.
No, actually, Ben was talking about a more orchestrated backup process or standard backup process or in the restore process in the Kubernetes. And this process, it's described in some kind of API so that upper level controllers doesn't even need to care they can blindly invoke
But
that API.
So it's similar to how, you can take a snapshot and, there's a million different CSI drivers that do different things when you take a snapshot. But at the end of the day, the user knows what he knows what he can get from a snapshot. And so he can use this API and expect it to be portable across clusters, which has value. And so you could aim for the same kind of portability for backup APIs and then have.
That's the volume backup API, right? That's the one that Andrew talked about earlier.
No. He's talking about something similar to CSI snapshot.
Yeah. So something as ubiquitous as as a snapshot where you just say, you know what, you just take a snapshot and point it at a PVC, take a backup and point it at a PVC, and it just works. Like that would be amazing if we could ever get there. I'm not saying we get there soon or we'll get there ever, but I wonder if that's still sort of something we consider to be in scope.
Hey, Ben, since you're working on volume populator, and also you're familiar with Cozy, it might be good for you to think about how these two can work together. Use the volume populator as restore time. How do you populate that from a Cozy, repo?
I have my own prototype in my head of like how I would like this to turn out, but like what I don't know is there any hope of like getting lots of vendors together to sort of agree that like this could even work?
So we could, that's something that we can discuss, right? If you have some idea, we can talk about it.
Yeah. I mean, a long time ago, I wrote like a prototype sort of backup implementation that just sort of takes your data and shoves it into a bucket. And I slapped a Kubernetes API on the front of that. And I was like, okay, so here's a very dumb way of doing backups that could in principle be sort of standardized. But then when you start to think about like, okay, if I want to have proprietary implementations that do better things and still sort of respond to the same API, can you?
Yeah, we need to make
square peg in the round hole and
extendable. It can't be just for this one implementation, right? So yeah, I mean, I think if you have some ideas, because this is something that I was talking about earlier. I don't think we have all the dots connected for like how to use volume populator with this Cozy.
Okay.
So if you already have something, I think that might be a good topic. When you're ready, we can talk about that.
I was hoping that Andrew might sort of sweep back in with the proposal.
So yeah, so that
do something
I think
along those lines.
Okay, so Xiangqian, that's a question for you. So I know that a couple of people in your team are working on that. Maybe they can give an update on that at some point.
Yeah. Let me circle back on that. Maybe in the next meeting.
Okay, so I know there are at least two people, right? Elliot and Alexei.
Alexei, yes.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, maybe we can ask them to give an update at some point.
And Xing, I'm also happy to sort of lay out, my sketch of what at least the parts of it that seem clear to me, of a backup API, and there's definitely holes that need to be filled in.
Yeah, there's also another proposal actually. Somehow thinking about reusing volume snapshot, but I think we should think about that. Kind of reuse the volume snapshot, kind of specify a backup location or something. So we probably need to meet offline just to sort out that part, and then we can come back to this group and talk more.
Okay, that's fine with me.
Yeah, but to your point, Ben, that's a much larger scope.
Yeah.
That's our initial goal actually, and then later on, Xin and I think we discussed widely in this meeting, this working group, talking about the first version of goals. The initial goals in the roadmap is actually to have the building blocks ready before we can actually proceed to that, because otherwise it's a chicken egg problem. First of all, we need to identify what are the building blocks, and then we go ahead and try to build some generic APIs around these building blocks to offer to the community to achieve portable, etc. But that can certainly happen in the later stage, I would say. Not at this moment, probably.
Yeah, it's just good to have like an idea of where your North Star is so you can point the ship in that direction, even if it's going to take a long time to get there.
Xin and I did give some, we have a slide shared before, right? That workflow, I think, is also reviewed by this group over here. we draw some workflow roughly over there. Does that sounds like a good starting point?
Yes.
Let me actually share that slides. Xin, you had the slides somewhere,
It
right?
is here somewhere, yeah. Maybe just the meeting before the
Yeah, it's
previous
called
meeting.
missing building
Yeah.
block diagram. It's in April 21st meeting agenda in the data protection white paper updates, the missing building blocks diagram. It is there actually.
Okay.
We can start from there. Here. Okay, I guess that's all for the CAP updates. Okay, let's go with the white paper. So this is working in progress. Let Form, are you there? I think I saw you.
Yeah, I'm here.
Great. Do you want to give an update on the CBD stuff?
Oh yeah, so the different source snapshot white paper. We have a short about 2 page, 1.5 pages white paper segment describe the different source snapshot, and so far we have.
Excuse me, Xiangqian, you want to open that or?
Oh, I can share
Oh,
my.
yeah.
Let me.
Oh, I
see.
didn't share my full screen. Right?
Oh yeah, you can share it. You can click on that one.
I opened it.
Yeah, you can open it. Yeah. Yeah, and so far we have receiving feedback from Xiangqian and AdRead from Microsoft and Jing from VMware, and we are I'm updating the document according to their to the. Okay, let me share my screen.
I'm sharing. Don't worry about it.
Oh, you're sharing? Okay, good. Yeah.
Yeah, just take me a while.
Yeah, you can see that the document is not really long. It's describe the motivations and the example workflow of how someone can use the different snapshot service to efficiently back up their the PVC. Or I also received some feedback. I think earlier when we talk about this. I think Ben have introduced another workflow that's similar to this on his on the NetApp SnapDiff, and I've been reading it, and it just looked like it very close to the workflow that we have here. And Xiangqian also recommend to look at the Restix, the Restix to I think Velero backup, also using the Restix to backing up and restore. And I haven't, I look at it before, but I haven't look at it on how we would use this different source snapshot to enhance Restix to make it more efficient yet. I would take some, I think I would try to take a look at it maybe this week or next week on that one. To enhance this white paper segment with some workflow, maybe from either from NetApp SnapDiff or from Restix. I have a question on the NetApp Restix a little bit. I think if Ben or someone from NetApp can shine some light there, I think I would be appreciated. One of the things that I saw the SnapDiff have is that that the SnapDiff have the they tracking all the chain between snapshot, and then they populate it into the catalogs or tracking the files of the chain in each of the files. And that seemed to be like a backbone behind the restore mechanism. And when we do restore efficiently also, right? Is that the main idea behind generating the catalog for the entire backup?
So as far as I know, SnapDiff is for doing efficient incrementals. It has nothing to do with restores. It's purely a backup.
Oh, I understand that. I was questioning about whether how how it helped in the restore, because like one of the things that the Snapdiff also providing service on is when we restore, you can do restore very efficiently with the Snapdiff as well. That is what I looking at to see if we can somehow leverage this different source snapshot service on the restore side.
Okay, you might be confusing that technology with something else. I mean, NetApp has a bunch of different APIs that do different things, and there's ways to, you know, rapidly restore certain snapshots. But the Snapdiff in particular is about if you have two snapshots you've already taken, it will tell you like what the difference is between them. So like, you know, if you're trying to build a backup API on top of snapshots, you can take your first snapshot, back up the whole thing as your full, that's your base. And then your second snapshot, you can say, well, you know, give me a list of what changed. And if it's only a few things, then you can, you know, do an incremental backup that only captures the diff between the two snapshots. Or if it's really, really large, you can decide to do another full. But it's just sort of, it's a tool to help an application sort of figure out how much change there has been.
I think I understand that part. I think what I'm also looking at the sample from the example from Snapdiff is that on the restore side. Maybe I can talk to you offline about this because yeah.
Well, I can share my limited knowledge around that as well. I read the Snapdiff API in details from the public available blogs NetApp posted. There are two pieces. One is, as Ben was mentioning, two snapshots, calculate the differences. The difference is actually at file level. That's one. And then using that differences, the Snapdiff API offers the catalog you mentioned. That catalog is just a list of changed files. That list of changed files is not contained within the snapshot information. It's dynamically calculated. And the reason why they have this catalog is to allow backup vendors to store this catalog list in some other place to achieve a file level selective restoration.
Oh, I see. Okay.
Yeah, if you're talking about more efficient.
Yeah, that's what I was questioning. Yeah.
So it sounds like the API has gotten even more sophisticated since I last looked at it. So maybe you know more than I do.
Yeah, you can check your public available blogger. It says clearly.
Yeah, that is.
The last time I looked at these APIs was like 5-10 years ago. So I don't know.
Oh yeah, you need to renew your knowledge. you design data populator, and
anyway, come back to the white paper on this different snapshot. I think that is what we got so far, and hopefully that I could extract a little bit more information from the Snapdiff. I mean, the Snapdiff of the NetApp, and also put it into this sample backup workflow as another example of how it is, how this one different snapshot would be used. But as you can see that there's the similarity between the different snapshot service that we are proposing and the Snapdiff service from NetApp is pretty close. They providing a list of change for each of the files that have been changed, so that the backups vendor can, based on this chain list, to backup efficiently. The catalogs and the user catalog on so maybe something that extra that we will look later. Yeah. That's it from my for me.
Sounds great. Yeah, I think it's looking good. There are a couple more comments to address. I guess other than that, it is looking good. As if anyone from this community is interested, please take a look. All right, let me share back my screen. Xin, do we have other updates in the white paper? Tom is off today.
Yeah, I think other than that, I think we're fine. I think I see that Xiangqian has made some edits to the first couple of sections. Thank you. So I think now we can move on to the open issues.
Yep.
Yeah, so
Robert, You're still
Yeah.
there?
Hello.
Hi.
Yeah.
So my question was about volume backup, and maybe this is too early to consider various use cases for it. But anyway, my naive assumption about the backup process is that the volume would first be snapshotted, and then in order to get the snapshot contents to the object store, Kubernetes would first create a PVC from that snapshot and then copy that to the object store. And with this assumption, I can say that there are many storage systems where mounting snapshots as read-only volumes is very cheap, as opposed to creating PVCs that are writable from snapshots. In which case the data would have to be fully cloned from the snapshot to the volume. So the idea is that the component that handles volume backup would be able to say that the volume that I'm creating will be read-only, and then the CSI driver can pick the optimal path to populate that volume with the snapshot data.
Yeah, so I think actually it really depends on the storage systems. Some storage systems, as you said, you can actually just mount a snapshot. You know, there are backup software already does that. So you just read the snapshot directly. So, but right now we don't have this option in CSI, because in CSI you can only multi-volume, you can't really mount a snapshot. I don't know if it's good to kind of what you was talking about, almost like converting a snapshot into a volume. That probably.
Do we have examples of storage vendors who can support this?
We can do that. Yeah, we can do that. So
Yeah.
Yeah, because I know I actually know a few vendors can do that as well.
For example, CFFS can do that.
Sorry?
For example, CFFS can do that.
Yes, CFFS, okay. Oh, I have a question for you, but CFFS has you're using CFFS CSI driver, right?
Yes.
Have they implemented create volume from snapshot?
I think so. I haven't used it in some time, but I think they do.
I remember they said it was very slow or something some time ago. Like it's better just to selectively choose the file that you want to use. So when you're talking about mounting, you actually mounting the whole thing. It's not, yeah.
The way the snapshots are exposed in CFFS is that you have basically a hidden directory in the directory that you have taken snapshot of, and then you can access it through normal POSIX file interface. So it's basically just a directory that is read-only and represents this. The
whole directory. Basically, it's like the whole. When you take a snapshot, you snapshot the, let's say the file system, and then this whole thing will be.
Yes.
You'll be mounting the whole thing basically. Okay, so it's not select. Okay, that makes sense.
And I think the slowness comes from the fact that in order to populate volume with snapshot data is that you have to copy everything. There is no lightweight snapshot recovery. You need to clone the whole thing.
So I have no doubt that like there's many vendors who could implement something like this. I think the challenge is, what is the user interface going to look like? Because we've deliberately designed both the CSI layer and the Kubernetes interface to like say the only thing you can do with the snapshot is create a volume from it. And if we try to say, well, sometimes you can also just directly mount it, like that's going to involve changes to the pod spec and all kinds of other. You have to think through, how do you tell Kubernetes this is what you want?
Of course. That's why actually this actually came up actually a while back. Actually, we didn't really do anything, but I think it's worth at least to think through this definitely. So once you once you get mount involved, it's getting very, very complicated very quickly, right? Definitely, I agree that. But I think it's still
what type
worth
of problem we're
exploring.
trying to solve?
Well, so I was going to make a proposal. I think this is what I was going to say is while the existing Kubernetes API really doesn't lend itself to doing this, and it would be hard to change it if we wanted to. What you can do is sort of in your CSI driver have some sort of a hack that says, if the user tries to create a read-only copy of a snapshot,
exactly.
and then attaches that volume or a read-only volume from a snapshot, and then attach that volume to a pod, you have complete control on the CSI side to sort of play the games you need to sort of directly attach the snapshot to the pod without ever telling anybody. The user just has to go through the step of creating a read-only volume in the middle.
But then you can't have your interface.
How do you pass down? Yeah, how do you pass down the information to in the CSI driver?
You can't do that.
Just through the access mode, I guess.
Yeah, when you define the access mode, you would define it to be read-only many.
Yeah.
So ROX instead of RWO, and that would be a
right.
signal.
But the problem is this is a snapshot, right? I mean, I guess the problem is you can do that in the CS driver, but then how? If this is exposed as a snapshot, how do you use that?
No, it would be exposed as a volume. Like at the Kubernetes layer, it would look like you just created a new PVC. But like if the driver was smart enough to understand,
return this as it, but I think the operation is really a snapshot, right? So I don't think they can say create and do a clone and then you actually take snapshot. Is that what you're trying to say?
No. You'd have your regular volume that's writable. You would take a snapshot of it,
and then you take snapshot. And then you have volume snapshot API.
But then when you want to read the contents of that snapshot, instead of creating a new volume from the snapshot and attaching a pod to that new volume and then reading it, you could create that new volume as ROX. And the driver could, instead of actually copying the snapshot to another volume, say, oh, this is a read-only volume. I don't need to copy it. When someone wants to attach to this new volume, I'll just attach them directly to the snapshot, which is read-only anyways, right? And then on the driver side, you have all of the control you need to sort of emulate a read-only volume by directly mounting the snapshot.
Oh, you're saying basically you say when your driver got a CSI driver got a request saying create volume from snapshot, you actually maybe you have to pass in some special flag saying, okay, I want this to be this read-only snapshot. So you basically kind of somehow point into your snapshot.
You would just, if the access mode was ROX and there was no write requests at all, that could be the signal to say, okay, I'm going to create a fake volume that just directly points to the snapshot.
But I mean, but there are other use cases you actually want to really.
No, I guess we can use both, right? The data source will be volume snapshot and the mode is read-only.
Exactly. I mean, it would be up to the individual CSI plugin author to figure out if they can do this with their system. But like, I can imagine a way to do it that requires no API changes at the Kubernetes layer or the CSI layer. And given how hard it would be to change the CSI layer and the Kubernetes layer, I think it's worth trying to play that game.
Yeah, and because the other issue we see is even if the storage side is optimized to not do the whole copy when we create the snapshot, so PVC from the snapshot, but the many storage drivers do have this space check, right, to make sure that there is enough free space available. So in that scenarios also, this is a problem where, say, if you are creating a volume from snapshot of a 200 gig snapshot, even though we intend to only do read-only, we don't really need a space available space check. There's no way to indicate that.
That's an excellent point. Yeah, you could use the same signal where if it's going to be read-only volume, it's a clone of something, you can waive all the space checks because you can never ever write data into that volume. It doesn't need any space.
But how can you waive that? This Kubernetes is already, when you say you want to create a new volume.
No, it's more of a CSI driver, I guess.
Yeah, it it would still consume Kubernetes quota. You can't fix that
Right.
problem.
That's what I'm saying. The Kubernetes
But on
side
the
can change.
storage controller, if a storage controller has a space check, you could waive that space check in that situation.
But yeah, but then you have, well, that's the thing. Then you got this inconsistency between the storage in Kubernetes and whatever that is really used on your storage system. So there is definitely some problem there.
But saying why is there inconsistency? So
I'm just
it's
saying
more-
that if you are saying, okay, in Kubernetes, when I say I want to create a new PVC, right, doesn't matter whether that has a data source or not data source. Kubernetes, once you do that, I think that quota will be taken. And then, but then you're saying that we are actually not really taking any space on your storage system because there is already a read-only snapshot there. We just use it. So
Yeah,
it's
I mean, the
going to be out
PVC
of sync.
itself is read-only, right? So anyway,
Yeah, it's
I
going to be
think,
out
I
of
think
sync.
The
anytime
quota
you
be
have
zero.
efficient, anytime you
Uh-huh.
have efficient clones, you're going to have complex space management issues, and it's up to the CSI driver to figure out how to deal with it. mean,
Can the quota be zero? Because quota is basically the
Zero.
space that you can
Can-
use, but there
In Kubernetes,
isn't.
I don't think you can because Kubernetes, the code I think is based on the when you request the PVC that size. So yeah, I don't know what we can do with the quota yet, but that's my understanding is actually it's actually taken when you are request that much capacity for your PVC. So yeah, so that's one thing that I see an issue. But other than that, maybe that's something that we can explore from the CSI driver side first, at least. Yeah, adding this definitely I can see the complexity of adding this new mounting interface for snapshot.
yeah, I mean, that could be one, or so we've seen other cases where there can be separate storage class where you could specify these kind of indications. And then when we create the PVC from the snapshot, instead of using the original storage class of the source PVC, we can use this storage class, which is almost same as the original one, but may have these extra flags to indicate.
Okay, yeah. So yeah, I think maybe that's something that we could explore. Yeah. So Robert, I don't know if that answers your question. Maybe you can. Do you work on this SAP CSI driver yourself, or you're just using it?
I used to, but right now we are just users.
Yeah, and even
But
we are
I
using.
will continue.
Yeah, so that's a problem that we are seeing as well with CFFS. So if you do a snapshot, PVC from snapshot, it's a full clone, whereas in most, right, it's the clone is very efficient, and unless we write, nothing changes much. But for CFFS,
right, maybe that's something that you can go. Do they have they probably have a channel for that? Do we have anyone here working on that driver? Maybe not here. Yeah, so maybe you can bring that up with someone who's working on that CSI driver.
Yeah, I don't think there's anything standardized. It's more like best practices for storage vendors. I don't know how we can say that.
Well, this one I think needs some experiment. I don't think right now we can standardize this, right? This is I don't know who has already done this. It's right now it's just we're thinking in theory this could work, but someone has to try this and see how that is.
The point I was trying to make is I don't think we should standardize this because it would be a lot of work. And
I think Sukarna was talking about maybe like suggesting this as a way of workaround, a standard workaround. I think we need someone to try this out, and then we can say this is a way. Yeah, I think.
Yeah, like Ben said, there's nothing to standardize here. It's more like what is the recommendation and guidelines.
We absolutely could invent the API to directly mount snapshots from pods, but then you'd have to figure out, well, what if a particular storage system doesn't know how to do that? or
Yeah, no, that will be optional. Just like we
It
have
would
a lot
get-
of
you have
optional
all this
things in CSI
complexity.
driver. I know we have a
You have
lot
all
of
this
things in CSI
complexity.
driver optional.
It-
How many CSI capabilities are really required?
Yeah,
Very
it's
little.
it's much easier to just hide this functionality in the existing API by playing tricks in a driver.
Okay, so that's something that something probably we should try for now. Yeah, it definitely I can see it's very difficult.
Do we have a sufficient use case of this thing? Of the mountain?
What do you mean
mountain
sufficient? What do you mean sufficient use case? So there are definitely vendors who would like to do this because it's a big difference. Creating a volume.
What is the problem those vendors are looking to resolve, right? To solve.
So I can explain that because we have this problem in some cases too. One way of doing a backup is to always take a snapshot and then attach a pod to, and then clone the snapshot to a volume and then attach a pod to the volume and read the data to perform the backup. So like that there every time you want to do a backup, you have a volume to snapshot and snapshot to volume. 2 clones have to happen just as your regular backup workflow. And if one of those steps is inefficient, then your whole backup mechanism is grossly inefficient, and nobody wants that.
Then I would challenging why we need that is if there's a CBT, right? If there's a change file tracking and change block tracking, right?
No, this is a creative volume from snapshot. This is when you're this is actually at the backup time. I don't know
Right, so
Xiangqian, in your case, not sure how you.
No. If you have change block and change file, all you care is the differences.
No, how you.
No, but then still the data path is not there. Right?
Yes, you still need the first time. You still need to have you still need to have the full.
Your first time is always right, but after that, the data path piece. Could you elaborate what do you mean the data path is not there?
No. So what I meant was even if you have the change blocks, blocks or change file list in case of NFS, how do we access those once we have that list?
Well, you have the change block.
Don't need to read the blocks.
Yes, you just go ahead and read the block.
But for that you need a volume which is cloned from the snapshot, which was taken from the original volume, which means you have to go through this create volume from snapshot process just to read the change blocks. And
no, process. That's the key, right? Look, here's what Restic does. It runs a daemon set on every single node, right? In Kubernetes. When the daemon set is up and running, it go ahead and it has the privilege to read all the mounted volumes under that node. Right? In this case, you effectively have read access to everything, as long as it's a mounted volume.
Right, but to get a point in time backup, you have to take a snapshot first, and then
that's right.
Read from the snapshot, not from like the live file system. And in order to read from the snapshot, you have to take the snapshot that you just took and turn it back into a volume, and then mount and attach that to a pod.
Right. What you described is absolutely needed. I do see that. What I was saying is that if we have the change block, do we still need that?
I think so.
Right?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. And the issue here is that one particular driver, I think Ceph is the one that was mentioned. When you create the volume from the snapshot, it does something ridiculously inefficient. And
it's not a copy on write, basically.
Yeah, it's
not
a copy on write.
And that therein lies the problem. So what I'm recommending is for them, they have a special case where if the volume they're creating from the snapshot is read only, don't copy the data, just mount the snapshot. And you could just do that and it would work. I mean, there'd be lots of bookkeeping for them to deal with inside the driver, but that's the driver implementer's problem.
Okay, we are out of time, actually.
Wow.
So Robert, I hope you got answer.
Yeah, sure. I mean, this backup use case was exactly the thing I was trying to present. So yeah.
Yeah, maybe talk to the SafeFS CSI driver developer. Maybe they have a channel and ask them there. So
Yeah.
see if this can be done. But yeah, thank you for your feedback.
Thanks.
Okay, thanks all. We spent a full hour today. Have a nice day today.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye. Bye.
Thanks.